In an abandoned castle that has been empty for many years, Mystery Inc. is trying to escape from a monster. Shaggy quickly hides in a room and locks the door, but what he does not expect is that the monster is already at the back door. Shaggy tries to open the door, but the doorknob is broken, so he decides to escape through the other door. Shaggy runs and screams for Scooby-Doo, and just in time. Scooby-Doo appears, so the two escape together from the monster. They coordinate very well so the monster can't catch up. The remaining 3 people are looking for a place to hide when they accidentally encounter the monster, so they immediately turn around but almost become bait for a crocodile. The monster is approaching from behind when suddenly Scooby-Doo shows up and saves the day. He successfully leads it down a staircase and accidentally knocks it out. When Velma finally unmasks the monster, it turns out to be Mr. Binman, a real estate agent who has been printing counterfeit money, and what everyone thinks is mold is actually green ink. It turns out that all along, it is Daphne who is recounting the scariest mystery she has ever faced for a talk show. Mystery Inc. is no longer active because monsters and ghosts always end up being just bad guys in masks, so it becomes a bit boring. Daphne is now a famous actress with countless horror movies. Beside her is her manager Fred. She also discusses her new show in which she plans to find real monsters to bring something truly terrifying and unforgettable to her audience. And she really wants her old friends to continue accompanying her. Meanwhile, Scooby and Shaggy have taken up work as contraband security guards at a local airport. With his super-sensitive nose, Scooby quickly senses something suspicious, but what he finds at first is just a pair of socks that haven't been washed for a long time. Digging deeper inside, they are exposed to a lot of tantalizing foreign food. The two rush to take it to the storage room, but surrounded by so much delicious contraband, they are unable to resist eating all of it. The boss sees this, and as a result they are fired from their job, back to being unemployed, but at least they've had a good meal. Suddenly Fred calls and says something that makes both of them happy again. Meanwhile, Velma is a bookshop owner. She feels bored with this job, so she wishes she could go back to her old one. As she sighs in boredom, Fred suddenly calls suspiciously and says something similar to what he said to Scooby-Doo and Shaggy. The next day, Daphne packs her luggage, ready to set off in search of a real haunted house, but she doesn't expect Fred to have prepared a surprise for her. He has gathered the members of Mystery Inc. Not only that, they also throw her a birthday celebration. Daphne realizes her friends are just the same as ever. Scooby-Doo and Shaggy are still obsessed with Scooby snacks. Then Mystery Inc. starts their journey. Their goal is to find a real haunted house, but most of the places they visit turn out to be nothing more than fake ghosts and cheap jump scares. It's not enough to impress Daphne, and she begins to feel disappointed. They stop to rest for a while. Daphne complains that she doesn't know when she'll ever find a real haunted house. Suddenly a woman's voice speaks up. She introduces herself as Lena, and she currently works as a chef at a haunted mansion on Moonscar Island. Lena tells them that a pirate named Morgan Moonscar died on the island, and that his spirit has haunted the place ever since. At first, Fred thinks it's just a ghost story Lena made up to scare them off, but Lena replies that if they're too scared, they don't have to go at all. That response sparks the group's old spirit of mystery solving, and they agree to go to Moonscar Island. But first, Velma wants to check if the island is even real. The result shows that there have been many mysterious disappearances on Moonscar Island. Meanwhile, Scooby-Doo and Shaggy are ordering a giant hamburger. Wanting to challenge themselves, they pile on a lot of chili peppers, but Shaggy doesn't expect his best friend to gulp the whole thing down in just one bite. After that, Mystery Inc. gets in the van and is ready to head to Moonscar Island. Lena quickly leads them to a ferry that has already been prepared. The ferry owner is Jacques, an acquaintance of Lena's, so everything goes smoothly. Lena is surprised by Scooby-Doo's presence. She says her employer keeps a lot of cats and is a bit wary of dogs. But if Scooby-Doo behaves, it shouldn't be a problem. Jacques mentions that only fools dare to visit the island, as back in the 1700s, pirates came to Moonscar Island to escape the law. Meanwhile, Scooby-Doo and Shaggy are hanging out at the side of the ferry when suddenly a catfish appears. It teases Scooby and makes him furious. Soon Scooby-Doo and Shaggy accidentally fall off the ferry while trying to catch the catfish. The crocodiles nearby see their lunch and immediately rush over. Velma quickly throws out a life preserver, but the alligators turn out to be smarter than expected. Scooby and Shaggy are now in a race against death. Luckily, a boat appears just in time to save them. A grumpy fisherman named Snakebite uses his hook to pull them aboard. Scooby and Shaggy don't know if he's a friend or a foe, so they look terrified. Snakebite grumbles, saying he doesn't understand why tourists keep coming here just to become gator food. It turns out that he is a hot-tempered fisherman who hunts catfish. Accompanying him is a hunting pig named Mojo. Still busy with his hunt, so Snakebite shoos Scooby and Shaggy back to the ferry so he can get on with his work. After the trouble passes, Mystery Inc. finally arrives at Moonscar Island. The island gives off a mysterious vibe that makes everyone cautious. Lena continues guiding Mystery Inc. and before long they spot the haunted mansion. Fred doesn't forget to record everything for their project. As soon as Scooby-Doo sees the cats, he rushes toward them to play, not realizing he's wrecking the garden. It's not until he gets stuck in a wheel that he finally stops, but only for 3 seconds, then he breaks free to continue chasing the cats. When he sees the lady of the mansion in front of him, Scooby tries to stop, but it's too late. Having just stepped outside only to get into trouble makes her extremely angry. Daphne quickly apologizes and introduces herself, but since they don't use a TV here, Simone has no idea who she is. Lena then explains that the guests came because of the haunted mansion. Luckily, the owner isn't narrow-minded and says that as long as Mystery Inc. behaves properly, they're welcome to stay. Fred asks Lena about the man earlier, and she says Bo was just a gardener she hired last month. As soon as they enter the house, Scooby-Doo and Shaggy rush straight to the kitchen in search of food as they remember that Simone told them to make themselves at home. Meanwhile, the others are resting when they suddenly hear Scooby and Shaggy screaming. At first they think the two saw a ghost, but it turns out they just ate something way too spicy, realizing it's nothing serious. Simone continues giving everyone a tour of the mansion. Scooby and Shaggy are still obsessed with the super spicy peppers, but then they realize there really is a ghost here, and it wants them out. The others hear the scream and come to check again. This time it is real when the words "get out" are carved into the wall. Daphne immediately tells Fred to turn on the camera to record this scene, but she doesn't expect the ghost to appear again mid-recording and issue another warning. Simone calmly says that the ghost is just getting started. Tonight is when it truly acts. Contrary to Simone's concern, Daphne is extremely excited about this. The ghost even appears again, levitates Velma into the air. Thankfully, Scooby-Doo arrives just in time to catch her. After that, the group replays the video they just recorded, and when they slow it down, the gang discovers that the writing was done by the ghost of Morgan Moonscar. Simone pulls out a history book and explains that Morgan had a crescent-shaped scar on his face, which is why he was called Morgan Moonscar. Velma realizes that the ghost is trying to warn them to leave, but Daphne, seeing this as a golden opportunity, decides to stay. Fred says Mystery Inc. has solved countless strange cases before, so this is nothing new to them. Velma returns to the wall to see what is under the wall paint. She uses a spatula to peel off all the paint behind the ghostly words. It turns out that a piece of Morgan Moonscar's ship was used in the construction of the mansion. Simone adds that Morgan might have hidden his treasure somewhere on the island. Fred suspects that someone may be after the treasure and is using the ghost to scare people away, but it seems no one really believes his theory. Meanwhile, Scooby-Doo and Shaggy head outside to enjoy some of the super spicy peppers. Suddenly, a group of cats shows up and catches Scooby-Doo's attention. He quickly chases after them and ends up being lured into the forest. After getting out from under a tree root, Scooby-Doo notices a toad sitting on his head, and it takes all his strength to pull it off. When he sees the cats again, he chases them deeper into the forest. In a moment of carelessness, Scooby-Doo falls into the lake. Mr. Snakebite is nearby and gets angry because Scooby-Doo scared away his catfish, so he orders Mojo to chase Scooby-Doo. Shaggy is picking chili peppers when he gets dragged into the mess by his best friend. While trying to escape, both of them accidentally fall into a hole. Seeing this, hunting pig Mojo decides to walk away. Scooby-Doo and Shaggy try to climb up and suddenly discover that the ghost of Morgan Moonscar is flying toward them and appears right in front of their eyes. Too frightened to think straight, they somehow manage to climb out of the hole without realizing how. Scooby-Doo and Shaggy try to run away from Morgan Moonscar's ghost until they bump into the gardener Bo, then they stop. The two quickly tell him that Morgan Moonscar's ghost appeared, but Bo says he only saw them. Scooby-Doo and Shaggy decide to tell the others what happened, but when everyone gets to the spot where Morgan Moonscar had appeared, there's nothing there. "Are you sure you saw a real zombie, Shaggy?" "It's not like I see zombies every day, Fred." Velma begins to turn her attention to the gardener and questions him. Bo says his job is gardening and he is just preparing his tools when he runs into the two of them. Velma decides to keep an eye on him even though he has an alibi. It is starting to get dark, so Fred urges the group to head back to the mainland, but Daphne thinks there is still more to discover on the island and wants to stay longer. Mrs. Simone doesn't mind and says her mansion has plenty of rooms so everyone can stay for a night if they want. Later, Lena shows them to their rooms. Scooby-Doo and Shaggy share a room while Fred and Daphne each get their own. At night, Shaggy is shaving when a spirit appears. It continues to warn the two to go away. Scooby-Doo and Shaggy are so scared that they run straight into Fred's room, but they accidentally bump into Mrs. Simone, making her extremely angry with Scooby-Doo. Shaggy says a ghost appeared in their room, so he leads everyone there to check, but they don't see anything. All they find is a mirror that used to belong to Colonel Jackson. It turns out there used to be Confederate barracks on the island. The tension is as tight as a stretched string when suddenly Lena announces that dinner is ready. Everyone sits down at the table, setting aside their worries for the moment. However, Scooby-Doo's presence isn't exactly welcome, so Shaggy decides to take him outside. Shaggy can't leave his best friend alone, so he chooses to have dinner with Scooby-Doo in the Mystery Machine. But suddenly a bunch of cats gather around them, making Scooby-Doo very uncomfortable, so Shaggy drives the Mystery Machine away in order to shake off the cats. Meanwhile, the other three are speculating about the ghosts, repeatedly warning them to leave. Fred thinks someone is trying to scare them off to steal the pirate treasure. Velma suspects someone is covering up an illegal smuggling operation. Only Daphne believes these might be real supernatural events that can't be explained. Meanwhile, Scooby-Doo and Shaggy have just finished their dinner by the lake. They decide to have some ultra-spicy chili for dessert, but quickly realize they can't stand the spiciness. Just as they're drinking water from the lake, they notice that zombies have appeared, not only by the lake but also rising from underground. Scooby-Doo and Shaggy run for their lives toward the Mystery Machine. Like in every horror movie, the vehicle decides to break down at the worst possible moment. The soft ground causes the wheels to sink, making it impossible to drive, so Scooby-Doo and Shaggy abandon the Mystery Machine and keep running. They accidentally bump into Bo but mistake him for a zombie and keep fleeing. Back at the mansion, the others have just finished dessert when they hear cries for help. Fred quickly gets his gear ready to record, and the group sets out to search for their friends, but they only see Bo, who says that their two friends had screamed about zombies, but he saw nothing when he went to check. The group splits up to look for Scooby-Doo and Shaggy. Bo asks Velma why she keeps treating him like a criminal. She simply replies that she just calls it like she sees it. Suddenly, Bo picks up a rock, not to attack but to test the ground ahead. Meanwhile, Fred and Daphne find the abandoned Mystery Machine. Out of nowhere, a hand reaches out and Daphne instinctively grabs it. Scooby-Doo and Shaggy follow. Daphne thinks this zombie is Bo in disguise, but when she tries to remove the mask, it doesn't come off. She feels that the texture is extremely similar to real human skin. When it's Fred's turn, he pulls so hard that the zombie's head comes off. Only then do the four of them realize that this zombie is real, so they panic. The zombie even reattaches its own head. Suddenly, the wind picks up again and more zombies appear. Scooby-Doo and Shaggy remember that among the 36 strategies, running away is the top one, but now they realize they're surrounded. While Fred and Daphne are trying to find a way out, they accidentally drop the camera. Although it contains important footage, they have to prioritize their lives. Meanwhile, Scooby-Doo and Shaggy are running from the zombies when they encounter alligators. To make things worse, they get hooked by snakebite. While struggling to break free, they accidentally tumble into a cave, and there they find 3 voodoo dolls that look exactly like their friends. Elsewhere, Fred and Daphne try to set a trap for the zombies but fail. Bo and Velma hear a strange noise and rush to check it out, only to discover Fred and Daphne. Velma asks if they found Scooby-Doo and Shaggy, and Daphne replies yes, but then they got separated again. She also says that she has met a real zombie. As they're talking, they are suddenly lifted into the air. It turns out Scooby-Doo and Shaggy are playing around with the dolls that resemble their friends. Despite Bo's best efforts to pull them back down, there's nothing he can do. Meanwhile, Scooby-Doo and Shaggy discover that there is more than just the two of them in the cave. They quickly run out and realize that it's just a bunch of bats. But out of the frying pan into the fire, the zombies have now approached them. Scooby-Doo and Shaggy have no choice but to keep running. At the same time, the other three are finally led down. They hear Simone and Lena calling for help and rush back to the mansion. Velma now realizes that the entire mansion has lost power. Fred accidentally falls into a hidden chamber while searching. When Daphne finds him, he is already in Lena's arms. Lena explains that she and Mrs. Simone were attacked by the zombies, so Mrs. Simone showed her the way to a secret tunnel. This place was built to hide from pirates, but the owner was taken away by the zombies. Velma senses something suspicious, but decides they need more time to investigate, so she tells everyone to go save Simone first. They continue deeper into the tunnel and discover a room that seems prepared for some sort of ritual. Now Velma exposes Lena's lie when she sees Mrs. Simone's footprints, but it's too late. Mrs. Simone has already taken control of Velma and Daphne. Fred and Bo also cannot avoid the same fate and are thrown aside. Then Simone begins the ritual before the full moon. It turns out that she and Lena are workats who drain the life force of others to extend their own lives. The real reason Lena brought the Mystery Inc. team here was to use them as sacrifices. Fred says that Scooby-Doo and Shaggy will come soon to rescue them, but Lena says those two are fools, so she doesn't even bother making voodoo dolls for them. Meanwhile, Scooby-Doo and Shaggy are trying to escape Moonscar Island when they accidentally run into Jacques. But little do they know that he's also a workat, so they have no choice but to run back into the island. On the other hand, Simone reveals that Morgan Moonscar is the cause of all this. Back then, she was still a normal person living peacefully on the island with others. They worshipped a cat god to bless their harvests, but everything changed the night Morgan Moonscar and his pirate crew arrived. Driven by greed and cruelty, they mercilessly destroyed and massacred everyone. Only Simone and Lena managed to escape. They prayed to their cat god in order to destroy the pirates and gain immortality, but their wish came at a great price. Upon becoming workats, Simone and Lena were actually cursed to preserve their immortality by absorbing other people's souls every harvest moon, or else they would die. After Morgan Moonscar and his crew, other ships also came to the island and met the same fate. Sometimes Lena had to leave the island to lure outsiders in. It turns out the zombies were just souls trying to warn Mystery Inc. of the real danger. Now Daphne realizes that they were actually the good guys all along. Simone also talks about Jacques, who also wanted immortality. Meanwhile, Jacques has captured Scooby-Doo and Shaggy, but he doesn't expect the zombies to attack him from behind. Scooby and Shaggy take the chance to run away. No man ever steps in the same river twice, but for Scooby-Doo and Shaggy, it's a different story as they fall into the same spot twice. The moon has risen high, and thus the powers of Madame Simone and Lena have reached their peak. Scooby-Doo and Shaggy have no choice but to do what they're best at, that is running away. But when they are blocked by a group of zombies, they immediately turn back. As soon as Scooby-Doo and Shaggy are caught by Mrs. Simone and Lena, the zombies arrive just in time. The two try to escape the cave but run into Jacques, and this time they really get caught. Meanwhile, Velma manages to free herself and unties the others. As for Scooby-Doo and Shaggy, they run straight toward the cave entrance despite the danger. Just as Jacques is about to attack Shaggy, Scooby-Doo stuffs a super spicy chili into his mouth, but Simone and Lena are still there, and they begin draining the life force from Scooby-Doo and Shaggy. Thanks to Velma and Daphne showing up just in time, Scooby-Doo and Shaggy are still alive. With two voodoo dolls shaped like Simone and Lena, the two are now at a disadvantage. Suddenly Jacques rushes in, causing Velma and Daphne to drop the two dolls. Now the tide turns again as the three workats regroup. But then their bodies begin to emit smoke. It turns out the full moon has passed and they haven't absorbed any new life force, so they return to dust. The restless souls finally find peace and move on. Colonel Jackson doesn't forget to say thank you before he disappears. But the saddest person of all might be Daphne. She didn't have her camera to film everything that just happened. Suddenly, Bo pulls out a detective badge and reveals that he's really a detective and had been investigating the disappearances on the island. The next morning, everyone packs their bags and leaves for home.